Curved displays are gone. Why are they gone? Everyone says the same thing. They looked futuristic, but they were impractical. They cracked, cases didn't fit. Sounds convincing. Except once I looked at the people who actually lived with them, that explanation started to fall apart. And that's when I realized maybe we'd been asking the wrong question. When Samsung unveiled the Galaxy S6 Edge in 2015, people were blown away because for the first time, a phone genuinely looked like it had come from the future. The display kinda looked like it was melting into the frame. That illusion mattered. Back then, manufacturers had a problem. Bezels. Even flagship phones still had noticeable borders around the display. Manufacturers couldn't make those bezels disappear, so they hid them. By bending the glass over the edge, your brain stopped noticing where the screen ended. It was clever, but there was a catch. Actually, there were several. Repair shops hated them, accessory makers hated them, people trying to install screen protectors definitely hated them. If you've ever owned one, you probably know what I'm talking about. You'd carefully line up the protector, press it down, and then those edges, little pockets of air, dust creeping underneath, a protector that looked perfect on day one and terrible 1 week later. Every little thing became slightly harder. Cases, repairs, accessories, everything cost just a little more, which seems like enough evidence. Case closed, right? Not quite, because the contradiction is, despite all those compromises, companies kept making them. For years, Samsung knew that they were harder to repair, they knew accessories were more expensive, they knew manufacturing cost was higher, and they still doubled down. So clearly, those problems were not enough to kill the curved display. So if these compromises weren't enough to stop Samsung, then what finally changed? Samsung didn't abandon curved displays after one generation or two. They kept refining them for almost a decade. Every year, the curve became a little more subtle, the software got better, accidental touches became less common, palm rejection improved, manufacturing yields increased. In other words, the technology was getting better, not worse. So if curved displays was such a disaster, then why spend billions improving them? That doesn't make much sense. Which brings us to the next theory. Maybe Apple killed them. It sounds believable. Apple never embraced aggressive curved displays. The iPhone stayed flat, and whenever Apple ignores a feature long enough, the rest of the industry usually follows. No headphone jack, home button, mini phones. Whether people liked those decisions or not, the market shifted. So maybe curved displays suffered the same fate. Maybe manufacturers just copied Apple. It's an attractive explanation. There's only one problem. It's not true. Even today, companies are still making curved phones. In fact, some mid-range phones have curves now more than premium ones. If Apple really killed curved displays, then why are manufacturers still building them? The answer is Apple did influence the market, but it didn't solve the mystery. So let's cross that one off, because ironically, the answer has almost nothing to do with the curves themselves. Okay, so maybe consumers changed. After all, people say consumers choose function over form, right? Except if you look around, modern flagship phones still have glass backs. They're still incredibly slippery, most still don't have expandable storage, most still don't have headphone jacks, some are so thin they can barely improve battery life. If consumers consistently chose practicality, none of those trends would have survived. So maybe people don't always choose function over form. Sometimes they choose whatever feels worth the trade-off. And that's an important distinction, because now we're finally asking the right question. Maybe curved displays didn't disappear because of what they cost. Maybe they disappeared because they stopped offering enough in return. Before we answer that original question, why curved displays disappeared, we need to look at the problem that they were actually built to solve. If to go back to 2014, because almost every flagship had the same problem, bezels. Look at almost any premium phone from that era. The borders around the display were thick, not by today's standard, by any standard. Manufacturers desperately wanted phones to feel like one uninterrupted sheet of glass. The problem was they simply couldn't build them yet. The display technology wasn't there, manufacturing wasn't there, the engineering wasn't there, so they found another solution. Instead of removing the bezel, they distracted you from it. Carving the display around the edge creates a strange optical illusion. Your eyes stop focusing on where the screen ends. Instead, they follow the glass around the side of the phone. The bezel suddenly feels smaller than it actually is. Nothing around the display area really changed, but psychologically, the phone felt futuristic. And for years, the illusion worked. It worked so well that companies competed to make the curve more dramatic. Some displays barely curved, while others almost wrapped around the side. For a while, more curves simply meant more premium, until something happened, not to curved displays, but to flat ones. Quietly, display manufacturing improved. The screen borders became thinner, frames became symmetrical, and flexible OLED panels became cheaper. Manufacturers figured out how to fold the display circuitry underneath the panel itself, shrinking the bottom bezel that used to feel impossible to hide. Suddenly, flat displays started to achieve the exact same visual effect, without the expensive repairs, without the awkward screen protectors, without the accidental reflections, basically without all the compromises that came with curved displays. And from there, the entire reason curved displays existed began to disappear. They simply stopped being necessary. So did curved displays fail? Not really. In fact, they succeeded, and that's exactly why they disappeared. Because they were a breach, and once you've crossed a breach, you don't really need it anymore. Today's flagship phones finally deliver the thing that curved displays were trying to fake all along. Thin symmetrical bezels, edge-to-edge OLED panels, displays that almost float inside the frame. Curved displays were simply replaced by something that achieved the same goal. Better. But there's another reason people still remember them so fondly. A lot of people, especially those who owned them, miss them because they represented a moment when smartphones still felt surprising. Think about the last 10 years. Phones have become faster, brighter, smarter. Cameras have become so good that they've replaced dedicated point and shoots. AI can summarize your emails, remove strangers from photos, and answer calls for you. Yet, despite all of that, ask someone what phone excited them the most, and the surprising number would mention something that was released almost a decade ago. The Galaxy S8, the Note 9, the OnePlus 7 Pro, not because they were perfect, far from it, but because they felt different. Today, if you place 5 flagship phones face down on a table, it's surprisingly difficult to tell them apart. Most are flat slabs of glass, large camera bumps, and the industry didn't become boring because the companies ran out of ideas. It became boring because everyone converged on the same answer, the design that offered the fewest compromises. And that's exactly what happened to curved displays. Hey, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out this next video.